I spent 20 years at one of the world's biggest firms watching brilliant people get passed over for promotion to the next level. And it was never about their performance. In fact, the people most focused on their performance were often the ones who stayed stuck the longest. After coaching hundreds of senior professionals through career transitions, I've discovered that most high achievers focus on the wrong things when trying to advance into leadership. They optimize for performance when the game around them has completely changed. So in this video, I'm going to share the 4 lessons that I learned around why focusing on performance actually keeps you stuck at senior levels, and what the people who break through to senior leadership understand that other brilliant performers don't, so that you can finally understand what's really holding you back and make your next big career move with confidence. Now, to start, you need to understand that the habits and approaches that made you successful early in your career, things like working hard, delivering excellent results, being a reliable expert, these often become the very barriers that keep you stuck later on. For me, this became crystal clear during my years as a partner at KPMG. I watched the same pattern play out dozens of times. Incredibly talented people who consistently exceeded targets, delivered excellent client work, and had technical mastery that was second to none, who simply couldn't break through to the next level. Meanwhile, others who were good but not exceptional at the technical work were getting promoted ahead of them. And I started to realize that at senior levels, great performance is just table stakes. It gets you in the room, but it doesn't get you the promotion. And the turning point for me was watching one particular colleague of mine, let's call her Sarah. She was the best technical auditor I'd ever worked with. Clients loved her work, her teams respected her, and she worked harder than everyone else. But year after year, she couldn't get that final step up, while others, frankly, less talented people, made it through. And that's when I discovered that senior career progression isn't about who's best at the job. It's about who understands the invisible game that's being played at that level. So Sarah was optimizing for excellence in delivery, when the actual game was about visibility, positioning, and sponsorship. And this completely transformed how I understood career progression. And it ultimately led me to leave KPMG and build Atomic Ambition, where I help professionals understand these patterns before they waste years playing the wrong game. Now, if you've been delivering excellent work but not getting the recognition or advancement that you deserve, you'll love Atomic Ambition, which is where I help you to understand exactly what's holding you back and how to make your next career move with confidence. There's a link in the description below, so make sure that you check that out. Now, for most senior professionals, this realization is genuinely shocking. We're told from day one, work hard, deliver results, be excellent at what you do, and for the first part of your career, that advice works. You get promoted based on performance. But somewhere along the way, the rules completely change and nobody tells you. You keep playing the old game, wondering why the same approach that got you here isn't getting you to more senior levels. Think of it like climbing a mountain. At first half, you need technical climbing skills, strength, and endurance. But when you get to a certain altitude, those skills become table stakes. Everyone who makes it that far has them. And the people who reach the summit aren't necessarily the best climbers, but they're the ones who understand that to get to the top requires completely different capabilities. Reading the weather patterns, managing the team dynamics, knowing when to push and when to wait. And the reason so many brilliant professionals get stuck isn't lack of talent. It's that they're still optimizing for technical excellence when the game has shifted to strategically positioning themselves, building broader relationships, and the influence that they have in the company. And there's a real cost to this. I see it every day. Relatively senior people working 70-hour weeks, delivering exceptional results, but watching less capable colleagues get promoted past them. And they slowly start to lose confidence in themselves. They start thinking, well, maybe I'm just not good enough. When the reality is, they're just playing by rules that no longer apply. Now, after 20 years observing this pattern and coaching hundreds of professionals, I've identified 4 specific things that matter far more than performance at senior levels. So let me walk you through each one. The first thing I learned is that visibility beats excellence every single time. Here's what this looks like for me. I used to watch senior professionals do impeccable work on complex projects, work that was technically brilliant, that saved clients millions, that was genuinely exceptional. But they did it quietly. They'd finish the project, deliver excellent results, and move on to the next one. Meanwhile, some other people whose work was still good, but not exceptional, they made sure that the right people knew about their wins. They present at internal forums. They get senior stakeholders to speak about their work at leadership meetings. And they find ways to make their contributions visible to the leaders who made promotion decisions. So guess who got promoted? Not the person doing the best work. The person ensuring that their best work was visible to the people making the promotion decisions. And the reason this matters is that at senior levels, decision makers can't see everything that you do. So they're going to make judgments based on what's visible to them. So you can be the best technical performer in the organization, but if the people making promotion decisions don't see your impact, you don't exist in their mental model of future leaders. Now, I'm not talking about shameless self-promotion or office politics here. I'm talking about strategic communication of your value. It's about making sure that your work isn't just excellent, but that it's visible to the people whose opinions matter. But here's the mistake most people make. They think that my work should speak for itself. And at junior levels, yeah, maybe. But at senior levels, absolutely not. Your work is invisible unless you make it visible. The second thing I discovered is that positioning matters far more than capability. And let me explain what I mean. So I've seen senior professionals who are genuinely good at everything. They can handle clients, any sector, technical problems, and they prided themselves on being versatile, on being the person who could step in anywhere. But they stayed stuck at their current level forever. And meanwhile, other people who were honestly less capable across the board, they moved into more senior roles because they positioned themselves as the expert in something specific that mattered to the organization. Maybe they were the person for financial services regulation, or the person for tech sector M&A, or the person for a specific type of transformation project. The people making promotion decisions weren't looking for people who could do everything competently. They were looking for people who had owned something strategically important. They were looking for people who had clear differentiation in the market and could open doors that others couldn't. And the reason this works is simple, because at senior levels, you're not being evaluated as an executor. You're being evaluated as a strategic asset. And strategic assets have clear positioning. They're known for something specific that creates disproportionate value. But here's the trap. Most high performers think being good at everything makes them more valuable. It doesn't. It makes you a utility player. Valuable to have around, but not irreplaceable. Not someone the organization builds their strategy around. So the question isn't, what am I capable of? The question is, what am I known for that I'm the best at? And does that create strategic value for the company? The third lesson, and this is one most people completely miss, is that sponsorship is the hidden game that determines who advances. So here's what I mean. In most organizations, promotion to senior levels isn't decided by your performance reviews alone. So doing a good job is just table stakes. The actual decisions happen in rooms you're not in, where senior leaders advocate for or against you. And I've seen what happens to brilliant people who don't have a senior leader actively championing them. They work hard, deliver great results, build strong client relationships, but when their name comes up in leadership discussions, there's no one in the room fighting for them, explaining their strategic value and vouching for their readiness. Meanwhile, other people, sometimes less impressive on paper, can have senior leaders who'd spent years positioning them, creating opportunities for them to shine in front of other leaders, and actively advocating for them in promotion discussions. So the difference here isn't performance, it's sponsorship. And what makes this so challenging is that you can't demand sponsorship, and you can't just earn it by performing well. Sponsorship happens when someone with power decides to invest their political capital in your advancement. And that's a relationship and positioning issue, not a performance issue. The reason most stuck professionals don't have sponsors is simple. They've been so focused on doing excellent work that they haven't built the relationships and positioning that create sponsorship. They think that their work will speak for itself. The brutal truth is that without sponsorship, you're not going to get promoted. You can be the most talented person in the company, but if no one with power is actively advocating for you, you'll watch less talented colleagues with better sponsors pass you by. Okay, so the fourth and final lesson, the one that brings all of this together, is that at senior levels, performance is expected rather than rewarded. And this is the hardest mindset shift for high performers to make. For the first part of your career, excellence is your competitive advantage. You get promoted because you're better at the job than other people. You get rewarded for delivering exceptional results. But somewhere along the way, the calculus completely changes. Excellence becomes the baseline. Everyone at that level performs well, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have made it that far. So we think about executive level discussions at any organization. No one says, we should promote Amy because she's great at delivery. That's kind of assumed. The discussion is more like, does Amy have the positioning to open doors for the company? Do senior leaders trust her judgment enough to put her in front of the most important stakeholders? Has she demonstrated the political savvy to navigate complex dynamics? Performance is the entry ticket. But once everyone in the room has that ticket, the actual selection is based on completely different criteria. Criteria that most high performers never optimize for, because they're still playing the old game. I see this frequently with some of my coaching clients. People working 70-hour weeks, delivering exceptional results, wondering why they're not getting promoted. And when we dig in, they're putting 90% of their energy into being excellent at execution, which is expected, but around 10% into the things that actually drive promotion, things like visibility, positioning, sponsorship, and strategic relationships. The shift here isn't about doing less good work, it's about understanding that good work is the baseline, and then redirecting some of your energy to the things that actually create advancement at senior levels. Let me give you an example of how understanding these lessons changes everything. I worked with a director at a Big Four firm, let's call him James. He came to me frustrated and confused. He'd been at that level for 5 years, consistently exceeded every performance metric, was loved by his clients, and had the best performance reviews in his practice area. But he kept getting passed over for partner, while colleagues he considered less capable were making it through. And when we dug into these 4 lessons, here's what we discovered. So for visibility, James did exceptional work, but it was largely invisible to some of the leaders making those promotion decisions. His practice leader knew his value, but the broader leadership team had no idea what he was contributing. On positioning, James was the reliable generalist. He could handle anything thrown at him. But there were 5 other directors with the exact same positioning, so he had no differentiation. And for sponsorship, James had mentors who liked him, but no senior leader actively fighting for his promotion in leadership meetings. And then on that performance focus, James was putting 95% of his energy into being excellent at client delivery, which was expected, and almost zero energy into the things that actually drive promotion at senior levels. So over 6 months, we completely reframed his approach. He identified a specific strategic area to own. He made his work visible through internal thought leadership, and he built relationships with 2 senior leaders who became his sponsors. 18 months later, he was a partner. Not because he got better at the job, he was already excellent, but because he finally understood and played the actual game at senior levels. I know this might feel cynical or political, and you might be thinking, I just want to do great work and have that be enough. And I get it, right? You're definitely not alone. But here's what I want you to understand. These aren't corrupt games. They're not about office politics or manipulation. They're about how decisions actually get made at senior levels in most organizations. The people who understand this aren't playing dirty. They're just playing a different game than you are. And continuing to focus solely on performance while ignoring visibility, positioning, and sponsorship isn't noble. It's just ineffective. So you've got a choice to make. You can keep your head down, do excellent work, and hope somebody eventually notices. Or you can understand how senior advancement actually works and play that game intentionally. One path leads to years of frustration, watching less talented people pass you by and slowly losing confidence. The other path leads to the recognition, advancements, and career satisfaction that you've earned. The question isn't whether you should focus on these things. The question is, can you afford to keep ignoring them? Now, if you're ready to stop accepting a career plateau and start making the bold move you're capable of, whether that's finally making partner, moving to a big exec role, or building something completely new, I run a program called Atomic Ambition, which will help you to get crystal clear on what you actually want and how to get it. You can find a link to it in the description below. Now, understanding these 4 patterns I've just been through is just the first step. The bigger challenge is getting clear on what you actually want, not what you think you should want, which is why you should watch this video next on how to find the work that you were meant to do. Because knowing the game doesn't help if you're not playing the right game. If you're finding this helpful, then hit the subscribe button so you don't have to search for my new videos.